Is it really sustainable that local councils could face no increase in support from government at all for 4 years and not make increased cuts to their services, which already are at rock bottom, or put council tax up by excessive amounts? What is going to give, Prime Minister? Good afternoon, Prime Minister. Since you were local government minister, Prime Minister, things have got worse for councils, haven't they, in terms of their finances? In the last 6 years, 8 councils have effectively declared bankruptcy. In the previous 16 years, none had. So, what is the fundamental problem? And before we say all those councils have made mistakes, some of them have, but as John Fuller, the Conservative leader said to the Select Committee recently, while the problems have been specific to some councils, there's now a more general problem, and in the next year or two, about half the authorities will be in financial distress potentially. Isn't that a fundamental crisis in local government finance?
Well, I think that the first thing to say is councils are the backbone of their communities, and they carry out tremendous work every day, delivering important services to the people they serve. And I got to experience that as local government minister, also being scrutinised by you, Clive, at the time. And as we discussed then, recognised that they face challenges. But that's why, particularly over this Parliament, significantly more funding has gone into local government, and most recently £600 million boost in the most recent local government finance settlement, which has meant that councils on average will have around 7.5% more spending power this forthcoming year than they did last year. And that settlement, I think, was warmly welcomed by Local Government Association, County Councils Network, and indeed the District Council Network.
That's in the context, isn't it, of a 30% cut in spending power in the last 14 years. And again, as Councillor Fuller, a Conservative leader, said to us, quoting the figures that he's experiencing, when you've got adult social care spending going up by 90%, children with complex needs going up by 23%, and your spending power is going up by 3 to 5%, it does not take a maths genius to work out that there's going to be a gap at some stage, and that gap, according to the LGA now, is around £4 billion, even after the extra money in the budget. The IFS says it's about £7 billion. That's a crisis, isn't it, where you're seeing social care going up, demands children's care going up in particular, special education needs going up, and other services being decimated in many parts of the country.
No, I wouldn't characterise it that way. Of course there are challenges, particularly with inflation, which is why actually to Harriet's first question, the overriding economic priority of the government was to bring inflation down, because that will help local councils with their finances too, as well as helping families up and down the country. And if you look at what's happened from central government to local government over this Parliament since 2019, the grant in cash terms has more than doubled. Right, so that's the change, that over this Parliament, the amount of direct cash grant going from central to local government has doubled in cash terms from 2019 to the...
Why is the Local Government Association then saying that 20% of councils face the threat of bankruptcy in the next 2 years? Why are they saying that?
Of course, every council is going to be different and face challenges, but I can just tell you that central government has doubled the grant since 2019, since I was Chief Secretary. The grant going from central to local government has doubled over this Parliament. Core spending power has gone up, as I said, meaningfully over the last 4 or 5 years as well. Of course, there are always going to be challenges, but where government can step in to help alleviate some of that pressure, it has done, particularly with social care, which has been the major area of concern.
You've got these concerns right across local government by Conservative councils as well as Labour, right across. In the spending plans looking forward to the next Parliament, the forecast is that de-levelling up department, including local government, is not a protected department. So there's a forecast of no growth in spending whatsoever. Is it really sustainable that local councils could face no increase in support from government at all for 4 years and not make increased cuts to their services, which already are at rock bottom, or put council tax up by excessive amounts? What is going to give, Prime Minister?
Well, I don't think we're going to write the next spending review here and now.
But it's in the forecast.
Again, the next spending review hasn't been done, so people can forecast all they want until the spending review is actually done.
But I thought you had a plan, Prime Minister.
To comment on. What I can tell you, and actually as the Chair opened with, overall public spending is forecast to grow in real terms over the next spending review period, in cash terms by something like 2.7% annually, and as I said, that hasn't been divvied up into various departments. That is what spending reviews are for, and necessarily governments will prioritise at that moment. But overall public spending is forecast to rise, not just in cash terms, but in real terms over the next Parliament. That's what the plans that are in the OBR's current forecast contain for day-to-day spending.
But in those forecasts, Prime Minister, DLUC is not a protected department. Therefore, it is forecast to have no increase at all in its spending for the next Parliament. That's the current forecast, isn't it?
I mean, all I can say is the spending review has not been done. The only number that exists is an overall spending envelope for what's called RDEL, the day-to-day government spending on public services. As I said, that's forecast to grow just over 2.5% in cash terms, 1% in real terms over the forecast period. Now, how that is divvied up between different departments is the work of a spending review. Now, I always come here and we have these debates. It's completely reasonable for everyone to say in their individual areas they would like more money to be spent on their particular interests, and I'm sure we'll hear that from many colleagues, as the Chair pointed out at the beginning. But I think it's just incumbent on colleagues to explain which department they think that increase should come at the expense of, or indeed what taxes should be raised to pay for it. I mean, government is in the business of always having to prioritise, but the framework that we've set out is one where public spending continues to grow in real terms over the next Parliament. The next spending review will divvy that up amongst the competing priorities, and the track record over this Parliament is for a substantial increase going into local government, particularly in the area of social care where the most pressure has been.